Hello and welcome to Matchup Plus Plus, the show where we are going to teach you about your matchups. About the God damn, one day I'll get it.
You see that? You see this tin? Does exactly what it says on it.
Yeah. So hello, I am Jack. I'm once again joined by team captain Chris and Tom as my panel of experts. Say hello.
Hell yeah!
Hi.
Hello, everybody.
And we are going to be today in Matchup Plus Plus. We're going over Genestealer Cults, Astra Militarum, and Worldeaters. Some very fun factions in there. So we're going to, as
You
we
balanced
normally
it nicely across Xenos, Chaos, and Imperium, Jack. Well done.
I know, like some kind
Well
of
done.
plan I've got going.
Yeah, that's cool. I'd not noticed that before, but I like that.
Right. So we'll get straight into it as we normally do. So we'll start off with the Genestealer Cults.
My boys.
So as the lowest of men, Tom, we'll count you to be our expert here. So Genestealer Cults performing best against. Caveat for the Genestealer Cults: they obviously have a very low play rate. They only have a 1% play rate, so a lot of these stats are going to be a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Also, as a second caveat, so we're at a position right now in the meta where Chaos Space Marines and Eldar have a positive win rate into every single faction in the game, pretty much, apart from like one or two. So if I put them on this list, it's kind of pointless. Like just assume every faction that we talk about has Chaos Space Marines and Eldar at the top of their performs worst against list, and then it's just everything else.
Makes sense.
So in terms of we got an overall win rate of 46% for Genestealer Cults with a 1% play rate and no event wins.
Boo!
And their best performing, the armies they perform best into, are Necrons at 85%.
Oof.
We've got Orcs at 57% and Thousand Sons at 80%.
Oh my goodness, that is pretty funny.
And they perform worst against Chaos Knights, Space Marines, and Worldeaters.
Cool. Okay, so I think it's interesting. Orcs is an interesting one. Necrons and Thousand Sons I get, because they're both kind of armies that want to sit off you and play tricks, and if you give GSC space to just drop in and start nuking things, they'll do you a lot of damage. Necrons especially, they ask that question, can you kill me? And GSC have absurd output in demo charges and neophytes that absolutely will destroy Necron bricks. Orcs is interesting because I would have figured that, much like World Eaters, because they dominate space so much, they can kind of body you off the board before you can get going. But evidently GSC have good tools for hurting Orcs. I do remember when I played it, I think Aberrants were quite good into Orcs. They found them quite obnoxious to kill, but that's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's a funny one because I looked at the perform worst against this and I was like, GSC, they're bad against vehicles, transports, high aggression, that sort of thing, and that's just Orcs to a T.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
Strange.
That's a really weird outlier because Orcs have all the things you'd expect to make life difficult, but evidently hasn't worked out.
So that one, it may just be the low play rate.
For sure.
Of GSC swinging that one a little bit. But yeah, as I said, I do think that GSC kind of have a pattern of, say, high aggression vehicles, transports. So they don't.
So if you look at that, Chaos Knights gets them. The artillery just absolutely rinses them as well. Space Marines, particularly Deathwing Knights, really hurts them because Deathwing Knights are really hard for GSC to hurt. And Marines have quite a lot of nice little runaway tricks as well, which makes getting the drop on them difficult. World Eaters, I mean, if World Eaters go first, GSC will lose that game. It doesn't really matter. They're just going to lose their entire backfield before they even start playing the game, and that's quite rough for them to recover, I think.
Okay, we'll just go straight to the next slide then. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So the most wanted for Genestealer Cults. Why don't you go through these ones for us, Tom?
Yeah, so I mean, the index, I think, as the win rate and the event wins changes everything else, demonstrates the index took a hit. It had a certain build and a few ways of different ways of playing. A lot of that's been trimmed down now, and I think GSC are pretty much down to sort of the raw output and mission play units in the book. The first of these is Neophytes. You take them in big 20s, you slap a Primus in there, and you have seismic cannons and grenade launchers, so a huge volume of about strength 6, damage D3. With various buffs you can get elsewhere in the army, you can get this up to about AP 3 or 4, ignoring cover, which is really nasty, and obviously tons of rerolls and exploding 6s and everything else. So Neophyte bricks dropping in do enormous amounts of damage. They also have a lot of OC too, so you can charge onto points, tie things up. You can use them with a forward deploying unit to have a big screen of Neophytes up the board. Those kinds of options. Acolytes are kind of similar, but they're the real hard target removal unit. So what you want to do with Acolytes is drop them in 3 away and throw a bunch of demo charges. Now the demo charge is like D6 plus 3 blast, strength 12, AP 2, damage 2. Again, you can stack the AP up even higher. And you can just have quite an obscene amount of output coming out of a demo charge squad.
You get 4 of those, right? So it's
You get
4d6
4,
plus
yeah.
12.
4d6 plus 12, plus blast on top, hitting on 5s, but with exploding 6s, potentially rerolls if you have a Primus, rerolling 1s to hit anyway because you're Acolytes, and then rerolling 1s to wound because you're Acolytes as well. So this just puts an enormous amount of damage on something. It's not as easy to use now. You've only got 1 3-inch drop away squad a turn, and the opponent certainly can play around it and make it difficult. But if this connects into something, it just puts an enormous, massive hole in it. People use these in trucks now a little bit as well. You can have them in a Goliath truck, so you can use the firing deck, and that helps you to maybe use more than 1 squad a turn. So they're also a little bit, they're not bad in melee either, so they give you a bit of objective push and mission play too with the hand flamers.
Yeah, awesome.
The Saboteur.
Yeah, Saboteur is the last one on the list.
Saboteur's fun. So forward deploying lone op, difficult to get into action with. If you come within 12 of this on a 2-up, you're taking D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. Makes it very risky for small, cheap trading units, throwaway units to interact with. And she can also use a demo charge. She's got one. She's got a little no line of sight demo charge as well. And she can use the grenade strap for free. So basically a real mortal wound sprinkling, a nice little board control unit that makes life difficult, especially for expensive low wound count units, and just helps to break down enemy targets as well. So lots of play in this, very obnoxious, very good for scoring the cards as well.
Really good into Eldar.
Really good into Eldar, if you roll 2s.
Yeah. Tom, you're not so good at that.
I'm not very good at it.
Last GSC player I played rolled a 6, and my Rangers just immediately died.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's sad. So, because they were about to go score me area denial.
Yeah,
so,
she's super good for just fucking with those early trades and exchanges on the objectives.
So something that's not on this list, but I would have it. It's not in the GSC most wanted, but I want it in all of my armies.
Okay.
And that's the Achilles Ridge Runner.
Yeah.
What an incredible unit.
It is
that
so
no
good.
one ever talks about. Holy moly.
It's the Tetra, isn't it, really, of the GSC army. It helps the other things to do its job. So the Achilles Ridge Runner sits in the back. He's got a little mortar, and if he hits you with his mortar, which he will, he's got enough shots. The rest of the army gets ignore cover and +1 AP against you.
Incredible.
If you've loaded it up right, which is nuts. And that's the stacking here, right? So it's stacking perfect ambush, it's stacking the Ridge Runner, it's already got good AP2 shooting, so you're heading up to 3 or 4. When stuff comes in from the drop turn, it ignores cover. Extremely good. Extremely good. And you'll usually find 2 of these sat at the back screening and just plinking onto things and helping the other stuff to hit you and damage you. It's really, really nasty. It's basically these units working in sort of tandem with each other. That's how the army kills things now. That's where all of the output comes from.
All right. So let's look at the list we've got here then.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Nicholas X list from London GT 4-1.
Oh, nice.
I'll just go through this one. We've got Clamavus with Inscrutable Cunning. We've got a Primus with Prowling Adjutant. 2 more Primuses, just naked. 2 Reductor Saboteurs. 4 units of 10 hybrids with 4 Hand Flamers, 4 Demo Chargers, an Icon. 3 units of 20 Neophyte hybrids with 4 Grenade Launchers, 4 Seismic Cannons, and an Icon. A Goliath Truck, and an Achilles Ridge Runner.
Yeah. Absolutely. So this is where we're at with GSC. Aberrants hit a point where they're probably too expensive to actually meaningfully use into sort of top comp lists. So you go hard on the output. You've got your big bricks of neophytes. They'll drop in and kill stuff with rerolls. They're a good Overwatch threat with the Primus too, because it's just so many shots and you can reroll all your shots. The Acolytes are doing a combination of sort of yo-yoing. You'll start one on the board, you'll put it back underground, you'll then drop it down in your next turn, and you'll have another one just coming in sort of traditionally, and you can also be using the Goliath truck to deliver another one as well, and potentially dropping, depending on how the particular event rules it, potentially dropping from reserves into that Goliath truck as well. So this list is going heavier on Acolytes, which means that it's all about the little janky plays with making sure that you deliver each next load of demo charges to their target, whilst the Neophytes will kind of all buddy up and just drop around, clearing spaces on the board. What it's very good at is dropping in and blowing stuff up. What it is much less good at is surviving anything that attacks it, and also maintaining a strong board presence on the board. What you'll see there with the Clamorverse is that it's got the forward deploy, so it's usual that you will have one of the Neophyte bricks or one of the Acolyte bricks deployed up the board. So you can either use that aggressively, or you can use it to screen, or you can just use it to stick in a little box somewhere and be a dangerous threat that the opponent has to respect.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's not a lot of variety in the old GSC list these days.
You could say that there is absolutely nothing. It was a very weird, quite terrifying index at release, and it had a series of changes and some nerfs. The Atalan Jackals got nerfed to the point of not really doing anything as a unit now. They don't function. Aberrants are extremely expensive, and the melee suffers from the same things that most melee of that sort suffers from in this edition, which is it just doesn't trade or fight particularly well. Although I do quite like infiltrating Genestealers as forward pressure. So this is it. It's dropping, it's blasting, it's hoping, it's seeing if it can table you in time to get onto the points and out. Obviously, it can score well because it can get to all the right places. But as you will see, even in lists like this now, there actually aren't any scoring pieces left. You know, it's really all in the killing and the damage. At some point, you're going to switch up to using maybe your Acolytes or your Neophytes as scoring. You can use the Saboteurs as scoring, but obviously you kind of want them in the middle of the board, so they're not going to get the corners for you. So the game plan for GSC has definitely become a bit more singular, I would say.
Okay. So these Primuses, the Primus give rerolls a hit, right? And they give you a redeploy as well.
Mm-hmm. They give you a redeploy. I think it's before knowing who gets first turn, but hey, you can no-sell some stuff with that. It's the full rerolls to hit that are amazing, because you have, when GSC come in from reserves, they have sustained hits 1 and ignore cover. And you've got Neophyte units that are firing a lot of shots. So being able to reroll all of those, 24 shots on the seismics in rapid fire range, rerolling all your hits. They do only hit on fires, but that doesn't matter because you reroll all your hits. You get a ton of sustained hits. You've got +1 to wound from a stratagem. And you just absolutely shower damage on in conjunction with the Ridge Runner's extra AP that we talked about before. Generally, people put the rerolls on the Neophytes. More shots, more value. And Acolytes are already so dangerous that you don't need a Primus there. But hey, it varies. I think the Primus with Prowling Adjutant is quite fun because he can also give the brick run away when charged. And I wonder if in this list the Clamorverse and the Primus go together on something that's deployed up the board and it can run away if it needs to. Not sure.
Right. So the Neophytes, these seismic cannons, they're 4 shots each with an extra 2 from the rapid fire.
Yep.
Looking at 6 shots, so that's 24 shots from 4.
Yep.
In on 5s rerolling with sustain.
5s rerolling with sustain. Yep.
+1 AP for the crossfire from the Ridge Runner.
Yep. +1 AP from the strat.
Yeah, +1 AP from the strat as well. So +2
you're
AP
at 3 now, and you're ignoring cover. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Extremely brutal.
Yeah. Okay. So there's
strength 6
is
is the killer. There. So into toughness 12, Neophytes don't work. That's what you need the Acolytes for. But anything else, they will chew through very happily.
Awesome. Okay. So let's cover the tips and tricks.
This is one of those armies that if you don't know what you're doing, you will face plant and you will lose. But if you do, it is very one-dimensional. So you will find that there is a fairly straightforward game plan for dealing with it. So the sneaky tricks are the main things. They will have units on the board that they can recycle, return to shadows, they go back in reserves, they come back down in the next turn. So that's at the end of your movement, they'll come down then in their own. And I believe this is often ruled that you can do it turn 1. I never played it that way because I'm a nice dude, but I believe you can do it turn 1. So there is a turn 1 alpha potential here because of current Games Workshop rules writing. And they also have give a unit alone up. So make it untargetable from 12 away, like the Nurgle stratagem. Obviously, that can catch people out. And crucially, they have a 3-inch deep strike. This is the one that it's most important to play around very carefully, because GSC struggle to get onto points. Getting onto points and holding them is their weak spot. So if you are not letting them drop onto points via the 3-inch deep strike, you're making their life a lot harder. That is how you deny them primary and make their life difficult. They are very good at secondaries. They will get all over the board and they will be able to tick off the cards. So you need to dominate the primary and beat them on the primary. And they are extremely good on their drop turn, but that's where all the output is. So the exploding sixes, the ignore cover, all that good stuff is only in the turn they come in. They don't have fallback, shoot and charge. They can't go back into reserves if they're tagged. So the key thing here is once they are down, absorb the blow and then tag them, block them, push them. Don't kill the units because they still have recycling. It's not as good as it was. So you don't want to fully destroy units unless you have to. But you just want to block and tie up, and then they're fairly feeble at that stage. Transports obviously really help with delivery into GSC because you want it so that when they do drop, they're just killing your transport and then you're still alive and good to go. T12 is also really good because typically Acolytes don't like T12 because even for them, it starts getting a bit scary trying to crack it. Anything with 2-up save and -1 AP is also really good. That's why Land Raiders were so popular. Deathwing Knight's popular. Land Forts can do this with Votan as well. Those are the main key things. Get on the points. Don't let them on them. Tie them up when they come in. Make life difficult for them.
The center of the points, so they can't.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
I think I think playing into GSC, I still find really intimidating, and I've still played them a few times. There's something about your opponent. They're going to be dropping down a lot of stuff and potentially 3 inches. And I think as a player, you can potentially get hung up on the 3-inch deep strike and be like, oh, I've got to try and screen this out and this. Oh, I can't screen it all out. No, you can't.
No,
so you have to make your your decisions. You have to try and work out where you definitely can't have them land, and then mitigate accordingly. And then it's all about weathering that blow, isn't it? Being in a position to be able to counter it. And I know in my experience, having vehicles to go in and tag stuff was incredibly crucial.
It's huge.
Just getting into position requires you to really think about your positioning. Where are they going to drop? Okay, am I going to be able to get into them next turn whilst not being overwatched? Potentially, if we've got a small unit, but have I got something that can just get in and tag? And as soon as you do that, the power of GSC, it's all in that horror of that turn 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Turn 3 drop. As soon as you can take the board, hiding in your little corner and enabling them to take the board and get all the angles, that's really painful. But if you're able to push them back or make them drop into all these areas spread out, then a lot of their impact is neutered.
Definitely.
All right. I think that just about covers it for GSC then.
So, in a weird spot. It's a weird spot for the index at the moment. I think it needs a bit more list variety, but we'll see whether that's achievable.
Okay, fantastic. So moving on to our next faction, we're looking at Astra Militarum.
Ooh.
So Astra Militarum, they perform best against the Death Guard, Dark Angels, and the Adeptus Sororitas. And they perform worst against the Tau Empire, Necrons, and Custodes. So it says it's 58% into Death Guard, 61% into Dark Angels, and 64% into Adeptus Sororitas. For Tau Empire, it's 44%, Necrons is 31%, and Custodes is 36%. The overall win rate is 45%, their play rate is 5%, and they've had 2 event wins. So what do you guys make of that one?
I've never played into them, so it's really hard for me to judge. I mean, I don't know, I feel maybe their lists which are potentially would be brutal, not many seem to take. Quite often I go to events and there'll be that one guard player who's got, or especially in the old days, had all the indirect and that sort of thing, and they can just auto win a matchup by going first. But I guess guard players are a bit more spread around, doing a bit of everything, and I guess the book just isn't quite able to cut it. The Necrons one's interesting. I guess they just don't have the ability to chew through
Yeah, I assume it's because it's sort of spread out across activations, right? That
Yeah, lots of that. Yeah.
Necrons can just regen back at a certain point in that shooting phase, and then they're going to be fucked.
And they don't really have combat, do they? God,
No, they don't.
What's their
They-
primary game like?
Guard do have they've got Bullgrins, so they've got okay combat, but it's not kills 20 Necron
No,
warriors
exactly.
around combat.
And they have the sort of Votan thing, but cheaper, where it's like Chimeras with Catachans in, which is quite good for primary denial, but can struggle for like primary holding in the face of a strong push from the opponent. Death Guard and Dark Angels, I guess, makes sense because I guess both those builds are often a sort of can you kill me build, and they're a bit slow and they don't have a ton of assets. And Guard will just lift them.
Yeah, Death Guard, I think, like to play at close range more when they can sort of leverage the contagions a little more easy. But which will come up later. But I think when you play heavily at range, heavily indirect, Death Guard, they just don't appreciate that. And I think the damage profiles on a lot of the Manticores, they're really good against killing Terminators and stuff like that. And Death Guard tend to be quite low on bodies. So that's something that the Guard infantry can play into, and they can out OC you on objectives. Which I think is one of the where they kind of fall down into Necrons, is that they can't do their normal thing of I'm going to put loads of OC on this objective, because they're just doing a worse version of what Necrons are doing there. I think Custodes are. It's probably. I think for that one, it's a matter of just difficulty dealing with the level of eliteness, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When there's just
you just hide, can't they?
Yeah. So the Guardian Direct is solid, but it's not game ending. And if you put -1 damage on stuff, you're just not going to kill it with indirect. It's just not going to happen. But yeah, so that's very interesting. The Tau one, Tau one's very weird, because Tau used to have a negative win rate into Astra Militarum, and then like the Space Marine book came out, and now all of a sudden they got a bad win rate into Tau. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, there's a lot more people trying Tau right now, and I guess Tau can shoot them and fade and all this stuff, right? And they do have great guns for lifting tanks and lifting bodies.
Yeah, if you're running like 20 Death Core of Krieg, something like that, Tau can lift that fairly simply, and the tanks as well. When it comes to killing stuff, that is the thing that Tau does well.
Yeah, for sure.
So, they've got that going for them. So let's move to the next one here. We've got Most Wanted. So the first one I've got here on the list is Lord Solar Leontis. He's one of those models that doesn't feel like it has a massive impact, but you'll see him in every list. He gives a bonus CP. He also gives you a redeploy of 3 units before the roll for first turn. And his main thing is that he gives out 3 orders, but he can give them to any unit. So he's not restricted to giving them to regiment or vehicle or squadron units, like normal command squads or tank commanders are. And he can also order the likes of Bullgrins, which is quite important.
Yeah, very nice.
So he'll normally just sit at the back of the board and throw orders out, and that's all he'll do, and generate your CP, but he makes a lot of this, so it's definitely worth knowing what he does. Speaking of Bullgrin, I think they had quite a glow up in 10th edition, and I think you'll see them in quite a lot of. I think you'll see at least 1 unit in most competitive lists. I know when we were playing at the team event, the guard list that we played, one of the guard lists we played against, the last round had like 3 units of 6 or something. So it's definitely impactful unit. Toughness 6, -1 damage, 4+ invulnerable, 6+ Feel No Pain, which is the best Feel No Pain. It just makes them really difficult to deal with. And then with 3 attacks, strength 7, AP1, damage 2, they hit on a 3, you can order them to hit on a 2. They actually hit quite hard, especially when you take it into the context of Astra Militarum. So that's really good. They can move quickly. They can move up to 9 inches again if you order them. So they're just a really good all-rounder.
Yeah, super, super good.
Yeah.
The actual output isn't that special, but all rounder.
Yeah. It's one of those. It's like, okay, well, if we get a hit by Von Ryan's Leapers, for example,
Yeah.
then you can handle that.
Yeah, they're going to laugh that off.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, even stuff like Chosen, like they can hold their own against Chosen with the -1 damage and the 6+ feel no pain.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's definitely relevant. And you just need something that's going to go and hold the line, hold things up, let all your guns get to work for another turn or two, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then lastly, we have the Scout Sentinels.
These are great.
You will see these in most lists because they're incredibly annoying to kill because they're T7 7 wounds, which is that perfect profile of for damage 2 and damage 3, damage D6 stuff and all that. 3+ armor save, pain to kill.
Yeah,
quite quick as well. Movement 10. Their special rule basically is to pick a unit. That unit gets, and then everything in your army basically gets to ignore the indirect penalty and reroll 1 to hit.
Yeah,
which essentially means all your indirect, if it's ordered, is going to be hitting on 2s rerolling.
Yeah. It's extremely violent.
Yeah. So yeah, Scout Sentinel's really solid,
and they can come back, can't they, via reinforcements if they are
yes.
destroyed? They qualify for that.
Sentinels have the regiment and squadron keywords, so they can be ordered by tank commanders and regular platoon officers, and it also means you can use the reinforcements stratagem on them, so they can be brought back.
Yeah, so just when you think you've finished the job, you have not.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so in terms of the list, I've taken John Barsotti's list from the Michigan GT.
Very cool.
So we got Gaunt's Ghosts. We'll come back to that in a minute.
I see these in lists all the time. I don't understand it, but I see them all the time.
We can go over the Gaunt's Ghosts in a second. We got the Lord Solar. We got a platoon command squad with Deathmath, Master Vox, and Medipack. The Master Vox lets you basically, how that works is you join Lord Solar and the platoon command squad to a infantry unit, a battle line unit, because all battle line units can have 2 characters in guard, and then you get 24-inch orders with Lord Solar. That's the synergy there. We've got 2 units of Cadian shock troops. We've got 3 basilisks, a Lehman Russ demolisher, a tank commander with a demolisher cannon, 2 manticores, 2 scout sentinels with las cannons, 2 chimeras, and an Eversaur assassin. So guard are one of those armies that have like 10 billion data sheets. So it's really easy to just lose track of what they all do. Gaunt's Ghosts are a unit of 6 dudes. They can order themselves. They can give out orders. Just 1, but they can give out an order. They are lone op. They infiltrate. They have stealth, which is quite nice. They can, at the end of the opponent's turn, they can go back into reserve, and then they can come back on the board later. And then they have like a weirdly good shooting output. They've got like an autocannon in their squad and like a bunch of high number of shot las guns, and they got okay combat with like precision and dev wound, knife, and like it's every character's armed differently because it's like a character unit. But it's mainly the utility of coming off the board, coming back on the board, infiltrating. You can to screen stuff, combining that with the redeploy from Leontis to pull them back into safety. So they're a big utility unit. The Basilisk reduce movement, which is a key thing to remember.
It's really useful.
They have the -2 move, advance, and charge.
Which can be game ending.
Yeah, which is really important. And then we have demolishers, which are just big guns, like they're strength 14, AP 3, I think, damage D6.
Yeah.
So they're solid that way. Manticores, strength 10, AP 2, damage 3. So it's just a lot of output there, but you've also got the couple of small infantry units to go out and score. No Bullgrins in this one. They've gone the Cadian shock troops instead.
Yeah.
In the chimeras, which makes sense. But yeah, that's pretty standard list, I think. There sort of thing you would expect to see.
Yeah, you can see the the idea, right? A huge amount of its output doesn't need line of sight to function.
Yeah.
And then it's got enough stuff to play the mission, get on points, draw you out, and also it's got a few options for annihilating you if it does get eyes on you, and then it's got Gaunt's Ghost and Eversir Assassin to score points and boop around and do the jobs.
Yeah. Okay, so tips and tricks. So gotta have a lot of like OC shenanigans. They have an order to give them +1 OC.
Oh, that's fun.
And they have a stratagem that allows them to change their order in the enemy command phase.
So
they can jump on an objective. Oh, we can't quite get it, and then in the opponent's turn, you spend the CP and you buff up your OC, and then you can steal an objective. They can also do a similar thing to what Necrons do with they resurrect models onto the objective of Deathcore Krieg.
Yes,
they have medipacks and they resurrect. So they have a lot of stuff like that. Then you also have things like the company, the platoon banner gives +1 OC to the unit. So you can have a unit that's like OC 4 infantry quite easily. And then if they're battle shocked, they still have OC 1 because it's a plus modifier to their OC. So yeah, lots of shenanigans there. The indirect fire can be very accurate. They are the indirect army, right? They have the scout sentinels to make the indirect work. They have a stratagem where if they have another unit that has line of sight to you, they can spend a CP and ignore the indirect penalty. If that unit has a Vox, so that's quite good as well. They have a number of stratagems and unit abilities that are really good when you just shooting one unit. So they've got stuff like Fields of Fire, which basically you shoot a unit, and then the rest of your army gets +1 AP to shoot it, which is obviously quite strong. But then you also have things like the Lehman Russ Executioner, which also does the same thing. You shoot a unit, and you get +1 AP, and then you
like a Ridge Runner with better guns.
yeah, with 8 autocannons on top.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then as we mentioned before, regiment units can be revived with a reinforcement stratagem. So you kill those 20 Deathcore Krieg, they're going to come straight back. Kill those armored sentinels, they're going to come straight back. So those really high value targets, a lot of the time it can be worth just leaving them.
Yeah, because late game that can end up leaving you very vulnerable, right? If they get in behind towards the end of the game because you've killed them and given them a way to get in behind you, that can be really bad.
Yeah, you do have to be careful because, as I say, they can just bump up their OC to crazy levels.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like, we've only got 5 models left in this Deathcore unit. Well, that's OC 20. So
yeah, you ask your opponent how much OC they've got, and they tell you, and in their brain they go, "I'm gonna have more though."
So there's a lot of Guard obviously is a shooting army. It is sort of known as a gunline army, but there is quite a few tricks in there that you can pull. A lot of shenanigans you can do. It is important to just make sure you know what particularly like the battle line infantry units do, because that's where a lot of the sneakiness comes in. The Deathcore Krieg, the sticky objectives from the Cadians, scout from the Catachans, stuff like that. So that's all stuff worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, definitely.
The other thing is, I would say, from difference between 9th to 10th is, I think, Guard are less reliant on the orders. There's just a lot less orders going around. So I think the index has been designed in such a way that you can kind of live without them. So it's not one of those things where if you kill the officers, the army just falls apart. It doesn't quite work like that.
No, that mini game's kind of gone, isn't it? And the orders are still great, and you still have to assume they might have a bit more mission play than I thought. They might have a bit more movement than I think. They might have a slightly better shooting than I think because they can get these buffs around.
Yeah.
Exactly. The whole army does die, right? Like there's not other than Ogryns, it all goes down when it's focused. I think with Guard, the issue is not getting into a situation where you've only trimmed a few of their assets early and then they just out muscle you with weight of numbers later on, because you are going to get shot very consistently if you just stand off 4 or 5 turns. That's really hard to weather. and they are then going to have stuff coming back as well. So they're not one of those armies you can kind of go 50-50 with and leave something back, because they'll just be sticking around and bringing stuff back and shelling you to death. So you do need to defeat this army properly in the early stages of the game, I think.
Yeah, it is quite difficult to like alpha strike them and put them out of the game from the start, particularly if you're going second. If you're going to try and
going second, it's very hard. Yeah,
if you're going very aggressive into the guard there, it can be quite difficult to break their back. So yeah, I think that's basically everything I can think of covered from the games I've played with Astra Militarum so far.
Nice.
Hardly an expert, but I mean,
you're not a guard main yet, Joe.
Not yet.
We love mains in this house.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that. I was looking at that Christmas box, but it sold out in about 0.3 nanoseconds, so I couldn't actually get one. But that's just how it goes, right? Okay, so that brings us nicely onto the last faction we'll be talking about today, which is the worldeaters.
It's the worldeaters.
So they perform best against Dark Angels with a 76% win rate, Tyrannids with an 80% win rate, Chaos Knights and Demons. They have the same. I put them together, 65% win rate, because they have the same win rate, they have the same number of games played. So it was like a dead draw there. So 65% win rate for them. They perform worst into Death Guard with a 36% win rate, Leagues of Votan with a 33% win rate, and Thousand Suns with a 33% win rate. Their overall win rate is 42%, which is quite low. Their play rate is 4%, and their event wins are 1. What do you guys think of that one?
So I at Coventry spoke to a few people, and one of the guys, he was talking about his friend who was playing Death Guard and played into Worldeaters. And basically, he said it's just like an absolutely horrendous matchup for Worldeaters, because obviously they want to be getting into contagion range.
Yeah, that's what they're all about.
Obviously, kind of screws the Worldeaters over. And there was something you could do, some trick you could do with like Nurglings, and they did something.
Yeah, Nurglings have a -1 to hit aura, and that combos with the -1 weapon skill, which means you can have even very good fighters hitting on 5s.
Yeah. So, and that's just, you've got no output there. So you can see why Death Guard wasn't. The only thing I know about Thousand Suns was that Paul Bridge, Thousand Suns main, said that he had played into Worldeaters, and he was like, yeah, it was Worldeaters, so smashed it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so, I guess with Thousand Suns, they can slow you down, they can screen things, and then they've got really good dev wins shooting out. But I mean, Magnus just kills 8-bound, right? He's ready-made to kill 8-bound. He's got exactly the right weapons for that, and they're not going to let you engage them.
There is a lot of feel no pain though in that army.
Yeah, there is for sure.
The exalted 8-bound have it.
It feels like one that could collapse for the T-Suns if they got rushed, right?
Yeah, because they don't have that much stuff. If you could get the alpha strike or the strike right, and you just nail into all the rubrics at the right time.
It's Warp Flamers.
Yeah. Warp Flamers are pretty brutal. And removing saves for the Berserk squad with the Master Executions, they just all die. They'll just all go. And the Umbralific Crystal, I think Worldeaters love to come rushing forwards, but it's quite hard to do that whilst also screening out the entire other 3/4 of the board. So anything that can get around you and in behind you is going to hurt you. Votan, it makes sense. I mean, I played this twice at the weekend, and I played one of those games really badly, and I still won both of them. I think it's just that Votan guns, again, love 8-bound, love all of those profiles. They can drop anger on very happily because their last cannons are wounding him on 2s. And they have Berserks for combat trading, so Berserks go in and can go toe-for-toe with the more expensive, heavy-hitting Worldeaters units, and they both kind of kill each other to death, basically, if all goes well. So I can see why that's currently tough for them with Leagues of Votan. Also, transports is a pain for Worldeaters, right? Because you want to crack.
Yeah, you don't have the multi.
You don't want to. You've only got the one phase to crack things open, really.
There is also a typo on this sheet. It's a 52% win rate, not a 42% win rate. That's my bad.
Well, it is. Yeah, I felt like they were better than 42. Yeah. I feel like they're in a decent spot. Yeah.
52% win rate for what he is. My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Leagues of Votan, you just have like such a weight of fire. Again, I think things like 8-bound really don't like that.
And they like Primarchs in general, right? Primarchs are there as like I'm a big tough centerpiece. Can you kill me? And Votan go the whole army's +1 to hit and wound against you. And that tends to make it a bit sad for them. Yeah.
Okay. So most wanted, by far most wanted. 100% by my million miles is the Master of Executions.
First model Chris
why don't
painted.
you take this one?
Yeah, so he's a humble man who has a berserker glaive, which gives you +1 attack and damage. Then if you charge, it also gives you plus D3 attacks and damage.
Oof.
So all of a sudden you've got this maniac who can, if you roll slightly above average, drop an avatar, which which is quite a rarity in these kind of worlds.
You don't even need to roll above average, do you? Because isn't the plus to his
because it
damage
comes
roll?
after, yeah. So you
It
kind of
comes
have
after,
to got
right?
decent like damage on the weapon and that, but
So it's like minimum damage 2 up to damage 4.
Yeah, absolute madman. He also, obviously, when he's attached to the Berserker unit, which is where he likes to live, he's going to give him fight first. And also, reroll hits and wounds into units containing a character. So that's quite nice
good.
into things like Wraithguard and that sort of thing who've got their spirits.
Yeah.
So,
Wraithguard and Hearthguard, all those sorts of things.
So he's just everywhere. He's a thing of beauty at the moment. I think many a World Eater player.
He's just really funny, isn't he? Into Primarchs as well.
He's not good at killing Votan, though, is he, Tom?
He did bounce off. I don't really understand how this happened. He epic challenged an Einhir champion and left it on a wound, and then the Einhir champion bopped him. I don't understand how that happened. I know he should. Like the little
precision strat.
Yeah,
he already has precision.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, he probably didn't use the strat then, did he? But whatever it was, he isolated my character and then failed to kill it with his 10 million attacks. And it was funny. That's the long and short of it. I know he's good.
I didn't want to sell the execution short because he does have precision as well.
Yeah. He's going to go around punking characters. Obviously, the thing with worldeaters, Chris talks about Wraithguard. Worldeaters are going to come in so hard into Eldar that if they go first, there's not really anywhere for the Eldar to run to. And Angron can also give them a +1 to charge aura. So even if you run all the way back, you're probably still getting caught. And that brings us on to the unit below, which make this even worse, don't they, Chris?
Oh. So I think Paul was like played into Worldeaters. He was like, if I played Worldeaters, I'd just have 18. And so he probably would actually go for the full 36 then, wouldn't he? Really?
Of course he would. That's a full James list.
And exalted.
He'd paint them in Deathwing colours.
Yeah. Obviously, so these guys are like the heavyweight fighters of the army. The 8 bound are giving you reroll wounds. So it's like reroll wounds of 1, and then if the unit's below starting strength or something, it's like full rerolls. So yeah, they go through and smash face. Meanwhile, you've got the exalted who smash face too, but their thing is that in order to fall back, you have to pass the leadership test.
Yeah,
and so if you've got to kind of manage to tag, let's say 3 or even like 2 units.
With you need to tag a few.
And a lot of stuff has got, a full back on or their leadership is around the 6, 7, 8 mark. So if you've managed to tag 3, then statistically one of them is going to most likely fail the leadership test. And then you are there stuck with the exalted 8 bound, which is not really where you want to be.
It's not a good place to be.
It's not a good place to be for many armies. And you've got the fact that, there's the feel no pain there as well. On the 6 up, which if you've got the blessing of Khorne, puts it to a 5 up, feel no pain.
Yeah, so very durable.
They can be really surprisingly tanky as well. And the 8 bound have a scout move 6, I think. As well. So, that's kind of the whole force because you've got the Invocatus who's given scout to other stuff as well. So that's really putting the pressure. And as
it can really be on your doorstep immediately.
Yeah. And they hit like trucks on top of all that extra crap.
Lots of AP3 damage 2 in there and some damage 3 as well. There's
and the APs.
Twin link punchy hands on one of them as well. It's
the leader.
Very, very good.
Yeah, and they've got, it's not apart from the punchy hand, which is like strength 14. Everything else is kind of a bit lower than that, but you've got the strap for +1 to wound against multiple vehicles and characters.
Yeah.
Which obviously then gives you a much better chance at just annihilating whatever you're trying to kind of get into, because you don't have big guns, do you? So you've got big axes instead.
Exactly that.
And speaking of big axes, The third one on the list is Angron.
No.
So Angron obviously came out, was it last year, and was in lots of fun World Eaters lists, and he was really cool. He could come back to life, and good news, he still can come back to life. Obviously, when you got a big Primarch, he's in the grand scheme of things, he's not hugely durable. 2-up save, like 16 wounds, I think. Like, he will get dropped by those armies that can just drop big things. But so he can be brought back. So your Blessings of Corn roll, you bring him back if you roll a 666, which on 8 dice doesn't sound that likely. But you think you can. There's a enhancement to give you kind of an additional or a re-roll of 1. There's a stratagem when you kill a unit to do one. So you've got like multiple chances to keep trying this. On top of that, with Berserkers, with the icon, you get to reroll 1 of the dice. So I can't remember. I remember hearing someone say once, like, if he dies turn 1 or 2, there's like a 60 or 70% chance of bringing him back by the end of the game. And obviously, the sooner that happens, the nastier it can be for your opponent. He's obviously quite good at killing things in combat. Even if
he destroys things.
he's
He's
smaller.
all right.
His less attacks is like D6 plus 2, but he's got 18 attacks on his 2 damage profile, which is like strength 8. So that would definitely kill some things.
Oh yeah,
I'm a fan of that. I think the interesting thing I find about him is a lot of like these big guys, they're kind of like a command phase buff that they give out. He's actually in the charge phase.
Yeah.
Which is either +1 to charge, or reroll all hits, or an extra attack if you're below starting strength, I think.
Yeah. Super good.
So obviously re-rolling to hits is when you've got all those 8 bound with him is kind of there, and it's this absolute pounding in the face, kind of turn 1 or turn 2, which you're going to be taking, and it's trying to mitigate that, which is the trouble.
Yeah, and the +1 to charge is also nice if you want to drop him in after he's died the first time and just have a better odds of making a charge.
Yeah,
obviously, people like to rapid ingress him, but if that's not the option, then you can definitely do that instead. +1 to charge just helps you catch anything that's chased you or just try to debuff you. But yeah, rerolls to hit with that kind of melee unit is just amazing.
Yeah, be glad.
One shots land forts every time, in my experience.
As he should.
As well, he should.
Yeah. I hear he's known for combat a little bit.
Yeah, he's pretty renowned.
Yeah.
Yep.
Infamous, one might say. Right, okay, so let's take a look at the list. I mean, I'd be remiss not to use this list. Antivena's list that he won Cali Cup with and took to the London GT. We've got Angron, we've got Khan, we've got Invocatus, Lord and Juggernaut, Master of Executions with Berserker's Glaive, 10 Berserkers, 5 Berserkers, 10 Jackals, 3 8-bound, 5 Exalted 8-bound, 3 Exalted 8-bound, 2 Rhinos.
Yep, famously 1975 points.
Yeah,
which drives people mad, and they try and improve the list. But he's so happy with it, he's still not changing it.
Don't need to do it.
Don't need 2,000 points. Why would you? I think the really interesting thing about these styles of lists, and I think I've spoken about this before, there's a video I watched was where Jack Harpster, because he also did really well at an event, SoCal, I think, with the World Eaters, is that they just immediately cause you as an opponent a major problem, which is how the fuck do I deploy against this? So your gut instinct is your threat range is how far? Okay, I'm going to go on my back line. Well, that can quite often immediately just lose you the game. Because if you go first, you've now got to move out. And hey, guess what? Where you are? You are exactly where you would have started and now your opponent gets to go. So you've basically lost a turn. So
you want a scout move on a bunch of vehicles and bikes for that, I reckon.
I reckon you're probably right, Tom.
Yeah.
And if you go, fuck it, I'm going to deploy to go first, and you don't go first, then you just get charged by lots of axe-wielding maniacs, and you probably all die. So it creates that kind of that balance of, well, how do I protect my most important assets, and how can I trade favorably? And for a lot of people, they won't necessarily have much practice of deploying like that or dealing with like the problems the World Eater presents. So there's certainly, I think, one of those armies that can certainly have that bit of that advantage just on the fact that you have played them before.
Completely.
You've got multiple waves. You've got the 8-bound coming through, causing all the problems, tying stuff up, and then the berserkers in the rhinos coming through afterwards. I mean, those 10 berserkers and Master of Executions or Khan, whoever kind of goes with, is just going to just annihilate things.
Yeah.
It's your Angron also there, just in the face. Invocatus has given everyone or the 2 other units a 6-inch scout. The Lord on Juggernaut. It's quite so. Anthony Vanilla playing this list was on stream like 3 or 4 times, and I watched all of them whilst building or painting some of my world eaters, and it was quite interesting. There was like a very clear common theme of play, which was the 8-bound kind of went out first, and the berserkers were the follow up. The Invocatus also was always sacrificed early on, because he's surprisingly resilient with a 2-up, 4-up, and the film.
Yeah, he's obnoxious.
And people,
he's got the grenade keyword too, which is nice.
Yeah, so you've got to put more into him than you would want to, and then if your opponent isn't able to clear that wave, then boom, the second wave hits and you're overwhelmed, because there aren't many armies that can fight and kill surprisingly durable stuff across multiple fronts. So the Invocatus doesn't join the Misfit Kev.
No, he picks them nearby, doesn't he?
Yeah, he picks 2 units within 6 and just gives them scout. So he doesn't. He could give scout to whoever he wants, I think, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just obviously, like, if you're trying to counter it, it turns out that infiltrators and scouts are quite good. Because if you start 9 away, then they can't actually get to go first. They don't actually get to scout forward. And I think in general, obviously, the move blocking is going to be a huge thing. I know you did that to much effect, Tom.
Yeah, a little screen of Hearthkin in the way to soak things up, I think, is really nice. I don't know. Do we have a slide for this, Jack? Is there a next slide for?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, very nice.
There we go.
So those are the key traps. And as Chris says, screening is big if you're fighting against them. Transports are very useful. Anything that enables you to teleport or move around them, fly over them, is also very helpful, because they are going to block you in with just physical bodies on the ground. Being able to drop Angron reliably is very, very useful as well. They've got fight on death in places with the blood tithe stuff. They've got -1 damage strat. They've got auto 6 advance. So they've got sticky objectives. And in the game in general, you're trying to sort of weather that first storm, kill off the big 8-bound units before they put you in the ground, deal with that kind of second berserker wave, and then at the same time be getting out and hitting them in their soft places, because they have to commit a lot to this. I like Anthony's list for having 2 rhinos worth of good OC stuff held back, which gives you more follow-up mission play, because I think that's the key to doing it well, is having that good mission play after you've put the opponent on the back foot. They'll often 15 in the first couple of turns, right, because the opponent's so busy trying to survive that it's very difficult to get out and do anything in terms of primary denial, especially if they've gone first.
Yeah, that's what Vanilla says, isn't it? It's very much they're going to beat you on primary because you're not going to score any.
They burn out hard and bright over this.
Yeah, they play the secondaries quite well. Harpster has put 2 units of 2 Chaos Spawn into his list, because when you get the blessing for a Feel No Pain of a 6-up, if you already have a Feel No Pain, then it gets one better. So that means the Chaos Spawn go to a 4-up Feel No Pain, which on 2 models in unit which heal back to full health if you don't kill them is quite annoying, as we know from Crypto Thralls. So I think that's quite a nice little tech piece, which you will definitely see about.
Yeah, definitely. And they're just super quick, super aggressive. Angron's amazing. Angron coming back can just flip a whole flank on its own, because so it's one thing dealing with him when your army's together and relatively intact, but then dealing with him again when you've been hit really hard is another thing entirely.
Yeah,
let's just I think they're fast. Just to give context, right? So let's say you have a exalted 8-bound unit, right? So they can scout 6, right? They move 9. They guaranteed at least to get +2 movement from they can always take a +2 movement from Blessings of Dawn. So they can movement 11, right? So that's 17 inches they're moving, right? They can also auto advance 6 and get advance and charge from Blessings of Corn. So we can add another 6 on that. So that's 23 inches they're moving. When they can then charge, potentially with a reroll from a Juggernaut Lord. +1 potentially from Angron. So you're looking at so 26, 38-inch threat range.
Yeah.
Turn 1.
There's no if about it. They will hit your lines if they want to hit your lines, unless you have scouts or infiltrators in the way, or unless you set up and screen to absorb it when they come in. It is going to happen.
Yeah.
So you just have to build to stifle that as much as you can. And if you do put infiltrators in the middle, they'll just charge the whole army onto that, and then the whole army's in the middle looking at you ready to go next time anyway. So it's tough. You're not going to stop them connecting. It's about controlling what they connect and trying to have a good plan for basically killing them very quickly once they have connected.
Yeah, so one more thing is I would like to highlight, obviously we've been talking about Anthony Villad's list. He goes through his list on episode 68 of Stat Check.
He does.
In depth, some of the stuff that he was doing, as I say, he was on stream. Highly recommend you check that out if you're looking to play into World Eaters. You'll definitely learn a few things. One of the tricks that I saw that he was talking about that was really interesting was when he basically saying he would charge 2 units into a transport.
Yeah.
And the first unit would kill the transport.
Yeah.
And then the units inside the transport gets out.
Mm-hmm.
That unit, because it hasn't charged or anything like that this turn, he can't interrupt with it.
Yeah.
And then the second unit that charged, because it has charged, it can make a pile-in move. It can then pile into the unit that got out of the transport and then attack.
Exactly that. Yeah.
So that's like a lot of small shenanigans that you can do.
There's a lot of fight phase abuse, and because none of us have really used the fight phase that much, it's very easy to get diddled by them. In terms of spacing out screens, making sure that you've got 6 inches between your units so he can't just slingshot into them after going through the screens. Exactly that with the transport jank, all sorts of stuff like that. I'd say this is an army you absolutely want to practice into, because I think this will probably be one of the most popular armies after Christmas, just because the box is coming. I think it's got a really
sold out,
really fun, very straightforward way of playing. Very quick, very punchy. Get to use a big Primarch, and it's effective. And I think the meta seems to be shifting towards a little bit more of a combat, hit you in the mouth kind of style amongst a certain cluster of armies. And they're very, very good at that. So yeah, I think this will be everywhere.
Awesome. Anything else you want to cover on the World Eaters, or are we good on that one? I think I pretty much covered everything.
Desert Fish says 4 inches between screen and units. I don't know about that.
Because you can move.
Is there not piling?
Get within.
Yeah, I guess you might be right.
If you include the pile-in as well, then it's further. But yeah.
I guess it depends a bit if it depends if they've got ways around the screen or not as well. But because I think they often can. Obviously, one thing they can do is trim the screen a bit and then charge around it. So you need to be able to leave space for them there as well. But yeah, it's one to practice and find out what works for you, I suggest.
Yeah, because Lord knows none of us know how to do the combat phase, right? So
no, not anymore.
Not yet.
No, Chris is about to learn. Yeah.
All right. So that is all of the ones we're covering this week. I don't currently have a plan for any factions for next week, so I'll have to look and double check what we've covered and what we haven't. But if you have any suggestions on the
Death Guard are a big deal now, Jack. I think
Death Guard are a big deal. Pretty into World Eaters, I hear. Put that into the comment section below. Let us know what you want to hear. And then while you're there, you can just do all the like and subscribe stuff, because
please do.
That helps the channel grow and all that stuff. Thank you, Chris.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, me. Welcome,
thank you, Jack. That's cute.
and until next time, I don't know. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.